The game begins. Snow lashed against the metallic hull of the Imperial cruiser as it descended through the stormy atmosphere of Varela 9, a desolate frozen moon at the edge of the Tarthan expanse. The nobles of the Galactic Empire called it a sporting ground. Others, more honest, called it what it was, an execution field. Inside the cruiser's luxurious interior, silk-robed aristocrats laughed over spiced wine and exchanged bets. 10 credits, say, she lasts an hour, snorted Lord Kale Threx, the one leading today's hunt. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with golden skin enhanced by generations of gene manipulation. Humans are clever, yes, but ultimately fragile. Lady Cyrilla raised a glass. Let's hope she runs. It's always more fun when they run. At the rear of the transport bay, a figure knelt in silence, chained at wrists and ankles, head lowered. She wore a torn environmental suit, barely enough to survive the cold. Her face was bloodied, one eye swollen, her lips split. This was their prey, Captain Raelyn Voss, a soldier of the defunct Earth Resistance Command. A tech drone floated to her side, chirped in binary, and drove a small spike into the back of her neck. The nobles watched with idle curiosity. Tracker implanted, announced the drone. Release authorized. A hiss of air, a clunk of metal, and the rear hatch of the cruiser opened. A violent wind howled inside. 2 guards hauled Raelyn to her feet and shoved her toward the ramp. Run, little human, Threx called, raising his rifle with an amused grin. Make it exciting. Raelyn stumbled down the ramp, disappearing into the swirling snow. She moved quickly, crouched low, letting the storm swallow her silhouette. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but calculation. 20 seconds to the first ridge. 60 seconds before the scanner net activated. She crested the hill, dove behind a crag of ice, and yanked a jagged shard from the ground. Her fingers, already going numb, gripped it tight. Gritting her teeth, she reached back and jabbed it into her neck. Pain exploded through her nerves. She fought the scream, teeth grinding as blood poured from the wound. Her muscles trembled, eyes blurred, but she kept cutting until she felt the chip dislodge under the skin. She dug it out with frozen fingers and crushed it under her boot. The cold would kill her soon, but not before she returned the favor. Lord Threx raised his monocular. Nothing on the trackers. That was quick. Maybe the cold finished her, offered one of the younger nobles. Threx shook his head. She's hiding. Let's flush her out. The hunting party spread into a wide sweep formation, 6 nobles in high-end exosuits, armed with plasma rifles, drones, and aerial support. They laughed and exchanged barbs over comms as they began the hunt. 2 kilometers away, Raelyn scavenged a small crevasse for supplies. A dead scout drone, half buried in the ice, provided what she needed, its battery core intact and a microblade in its maintenance pod. She cut her uniform sleeves for mobility and used wiring to fasten the blade to her forearm. Primitive but effective. Her mind worked fast. Wind speed, 60 kilometers per hour. Visibility, 10 meters. Sound carries poorly, thermal's worse. That meant they'd rely on drones and line of sight. She moved silently toward the sound of their chatter, using the storm as cover. The youngest noble, Lord Jevon, broke formation, grinning to himself as he stalked through a narrow ravine. "Come out, little ape," he cooed, his rifle raised lazily. "I'll make it painless if you beg." His HUD flickered. A brief glitch. Then movement. Too late. Raelyn dropped from above like a shadow, blade flashing. She plunged it into the gap between his shoulder plates, twisted, and yanked him down into the snow. He struggled, choking on blood as she pressed a hand over his mouth. When his body went limp, she took his weapon and vanished into the white. "Lost contact with Jevon," one of the nobles muttered. "Probably got lost," said another. Threx's eyes narrowed. "No, something's wrong. Pull the patrols tighter." Inside his HUD, a red blinking dot appeared. Jevon's tracker, now stationary. Threx switched channels. "Deploy aerials." "She's out here." A low hum rose in the air. 2 reconnaissance drones soared overhead, scanning the terrain. But Raelyn was already gone, deep into crevices where their sensors couldn't reach. That night, she huddled in a cave under a collapsed glacier, body shivering, but mind sharp. She stripped the noble's armor for heat plating and tapped into his comms unit. Static, then weak signal. She tried an old encryption, the kind no one used anymore. The kind only they would remember. "Voss to Reapers," she whispered. "Code black. They're hunting me on Raelyn. If you're alive, I'm coming home." She stared into the dark, her breath fogging. They thought she was prey. They had no idea. Blood on snow. The drone's ruined optics still twitched as Raelyn pried, its power cell free. Sparks hissed in the freezing air. Her hands trembled, not from fear or fatigue, but from the cold beginning to dig its claws deeper into her bones. She didn't have much time. With quick, practiced movements, she spliced the power cell into the borrowed comms unit. The connection was crude, exposed wiring crisscrossing like veins over her wrist, but it would hold. She sent a second burst transmission on the old Ghost Reaper channel. Ultra-low frequency, tight beam, piggybacked on static bursts to avoid detection. No response. That was fine. She wasn't depending on anyone to save her. Meanwhile, half a click west, Lord Threx and his remaining nobles gathered near Jevon's abandoned armor. His body was gone, stripped of gear and half melted into the snow, like something had dragged him off. One of the nobles kicked a scorched chest plate. She's not just hiding anymore. Threx's jaw tightened. She's fighting back, using stealth, cover, old-school tactics. This isn't a frightened prisoner. This is someone trained. She's just one human. She's a soldier, Threx corrected. One who knows we're coming. And we've given her weapons. He looked to the sky as the scout drones buzzed overhead. Increased drone coverage. Titan formation. No one separates from the group again. Raelyn watched them through a crude thermal scope she'd ripped from Jevon's helmet. 3 bodies huddled near a beacon. Too confident. Too loud. Too predictable. She moved like a shadow, weaving between jagged ice and snow-covered stone. A shimmer of memory flickered in her mind. An old training op in the Siberian wastes. She and her squad had hunted a rogue psyker cell through 30 below conditions, with nothing but knives and grit. You don't wait for war, her old CO used to say. You bring it. Flashback. A younger Raelyn stands in an underground kill house on Mars, back when Earth's alliance was still clinging to its last military strongholds. She's flanked by her squad, 6 of them in black armor, helmets off, laughing and smoking before a mission. Ghost Reapers, they were called. The Empire had branded them terrorists. Humanity had called them the last hope. They specialized in asymmetrical warfare, small teams with brutal efficiency. Raelyn was their commanding officer. They weren't dead. Not really. The Empire just wanted people to believe that. The flashback faded. Present. Raelyn. She crawled forward, belly down, until she was beneath the beacon. Using Jevon's stolen rifle, she mounted it onto a wedge of ice and tied a strand of monofilament around the trigger. Then she set a countdown on the beacon's fusion core. They wouldn't notice until it was too late. She pulled back into the rocks and waited. Threx's comm pinged. Thermal contact, East Ridge. Rifle signature. He nodded. She's watching us. The nobles raised their weapons, scanning wildly. Then the rifle fired. The round punched into the chest of a noble beside Threx. He dropped, screaming. Another noble returned fire blindly toward the ridge. They rushed toward the heat signature, only to trigger the trap. The beacon's fusion core blew. A controlled explosion meant not to kill, but to scatter. Heat, noise, smoke. Confusion. In the chaos, Raelyn struck again. A blade to the neck of the second noble. A rifle but to the face of another. Fast. Clean. No wasted movement. She melted back into the snow before the drones even recalibrated. Threx stood over the carnage, 3 of his party now dead. His perfectly combed hair was blown loose. Blood streaked his armor. She's hunting us, he growled. The drones fed him data, limited. Jam signals. Fragmented telemetry. This wasn't just luck or desperation. This was war. Raelyn took shelter in a narrow ice tunnel and stitched up a cut across her ribs. The fusion beacon had scorched her shoulder, but nothing deep. The cold had stopped the bleeding faster than any medkit. She stared at her reflection in the ice wall. Hardened eyes, bloodied face, unbroken. She remembered the last mission, the betrayal. Command had ordered the Ghost Reapers into enemy territory under false pretenses, an ambush, political sacrifice. Raelyn had survived barely. Her squad, scattered, hunted, buried in unmarked graves on forgotten moons. Until now, she activated the comm again. Voss to Reapers. I'm not dead. Raelyn, the Empire's nobles are here, hunting me like an animal. You hear me? A pause. Then quieter. They think I'm alone. Back in the snowfields, Threx stared at the blinking lights on his HUD. 3 nobles dead. His comms were choked with static. Drones were vanishing from his network. Something, or someone, was jamming them. She can't do this alone, one of his guards said. But Threx wasn't so sure anymore. He knelt beside one of the dead nobles. Carved into the armor was a symbol. Small, discreet, but unmistakable. A black skull wreathed in ash. His expression changed. No, he whispered. Not them. They were supposed to be dead. He stood and barked into his comms. Send a signal to orbit. Full extraction. We're aborting the hunt. But the signal didn't go through. Someone else was in control now. In the ice tunnel, Raelyn smiled faintly as she watched the jamming sequence finish. Signal locked. No way out. Let the game begin, she whispered. The Reapers awaken. The night sky above Varela. 9 shimmered with auroras, veins of pale green light stretching across a void filled with distant stars. But behind that beauty, something darker moved. A stealth frigate, black as the vacuum it slipped through, emerged from subspace, its hull coated with adaptive armor, unreadable by Imperial scans. No transponder, no registry, no allegiance. Inside, a grim voice broke the silence. She's alive. At the command console stood a man with a scar running down his face like a tear. His name was Cole Stranick, call sign. Ghost 2. Demolitions expert. Ghost Reaper. He stared at the blinking signal on his screen, encrypted with a dead code that only a handful of souls in the galaxy still recognized. Code Black. Raelyn Voss. Raelyn. She was never the type to beg, Cole muttered. Another voice joined him, deep and mechanical. This isn't a distress signal. Stranick turned. In the shadows stood a giant in power armor, Tor Valen, Ghost 5, the squad's heavy. He carried a kinetic minigun slung across his back like a war drum. She's telling us to finish what we started, Tor said. Stranick cracked a grin. Damn right. Back on Varela, 9, Raelyn stalked the Imperial outpost the nobles had erected near their landing zone, a heated encampment shielded with energy barriers and lined with drones. A small fortress built for hunters who never expected to become hunted. She studied their positions through the stolen scope. For guards, minimal power. Most of their tech was shut down or rerouted, thanks to the jamming field she'd activated 2 hours ago. They were waiting for extraction, but no one was coming. Inside the camp, Lord Threx paced, his arrogance replaced by cold fury. We've lost orbital contact. No backup, no evac. She's disabled our systems, comms, sensors, even the perimeter AI. We're blind. Lady Cyrilla sat by the fire, shaking. Her once pristine armor was scuffed and cracked. She can't do this alone. This is military-grade sabotage. Threx didn't answer. He was staring at the skull symbol again, etched into the metal of his fallen comrades. He knew that mark. Everyone in the upper echelons of the Empire knew it. The Ghost Reapers, humanity's Black Ops nightmare, officially disbanded, unofficially hunted to extinction. How many are still out there? Cyrilla whispered. Before Threx could answer, the sky split. A sonic boom shattered the quiet as a series of drop pods screamed through the atmosphere. Black coffins of steel descending like the hammer of God. The nobles rushed to arms, but it was too late. The pods hit the snow with a sound like cracking bone. Out of them stepped ghosts. Stranick was the first to move, twin plasma blades lighting in his hands. He tore through the first 2 guards like paper, dancing between bolts of return fire, carving arcs of blood across the snow. Tor followed, laying down a wall of suppressive fire that cut drones from the sky. His minigun sang the old war song of Earth, loud, relentless, and merciless. Two more pods landed nearby. Mira, Ghost 4, the squad silent sniper, took a position on a cliffside, her rail rifle whispering death through the storm. And beside her, Rook, their ex-hacker turned PSYOPs specialist, slipped into the Imperial comms system and turned it against them, blasting old Earth resistance propaganda into their ears. You hunted one of us. Now you answer to all of us. Raelyn watched the chaos unfold and felt something she hadn't in years. Home. She emerged from cover and stormed into the camp like a specter, moving between firelight and shadow, disarming and disabling with precision. Her blade found Threx's guards one by one, dropping them before they could aim. In the heart of the camp, she came face to face with Threx. He raised his rifle. She didn't flinch. You don't know what you've done, he snarled. I do, she said coldly. I baited the trap. He fired. She moved. The bolt missed her by inches, and she tackled him into the snow. They rolled, fighting hand to hand. His enhanced strength met her raw ferocity. He struck her across the face, splitting her lip again, but she didn't stop. She drove her blade into his shoulder, twisted, and brought him to the ground. Pinned beneath her, blood pouring from his mouth, Threx gasped, "You're monsters." Raelyn leaned in close. "No," she whispered. "We're human." And then she finished it. When the last of the guards fell, the Reapers regrouped at the center of the ruined camp. Bodies littered the snow. The Empire's elite lay dead where they had feasted. Strannik approached her. "You always had a flair for the dramatic." Raelyn gave a tired smirk. "Had to get your attention somehow." Tor chuckled. "Damn glad you did." Mira said nothing, just nodded. Rook tapped into the Imperial system and began wiping their presence. "You sure we want to vanish again?" Strannik asked. Raelyn looked to the stars. "No," she said. "This time, we sent a message." She turned to the camera drones, still active, hijacked by Rook. Her bloodied face stared straight into the lens. "To the Empire," she said. "We remember everything. Requiem for Empire." The storm finally broke. Above the smoldering remains of the Imperial hunting camp, the sky cleared just enough to reveal stars, distant, silent witnesses to the slaughter below. The wind carried the scent of plasma burns and scorched synth flesh, the final notes in a requiem the Empire had unknowingly commissioned. Captain Raelyn Voss stood over Lord Kale, Threx's lifeless body. Blood soaked the snow beneath him, steaming in the cold. Her blade still dripped red. Her breathing was heavy, but steady. Around her, the Ghost Reapers moved like professionals cleaning up after an operation. No words, no wasted motion. Just death and disappearance. Strannik stepped beside her, scanning the wreckage. All nobles accounted for. All drones fried. Comm scrubbed. We leave nothing behind. Rook's voice crackled over the comms. "I've inserted a phantom signature into the Imperial records. Looks like a catastrophic reactor failure, triggered by an atmospheric surge. Noble deaths listed as an unfortunate training accident. Very tragic." Mira gave a rare, dry chuckle. "Poetic." Tor holstered his weapon. "You sure we want to vanish again? The whole galaxy thinks we're dead. It's a hell of a comeback." Raelyn stared at the fire flickering in the distance. The last of the nobles' encampment burning like an offering. "No," she said, voice low and cold. "This wasn't a comeback." Strannik raised an eyebrow. "Then what was it?" She turned to face her team. "A warning." Hours later, aboard the stealth frigate, the Reapers sat in the debriefing chamber. No brass, no commanders, just war-hardened ghosts in a floating tomb of steel and silence. Rook projected a hollow feed into the air. The nobles' private logs, financial connections, military deployments, and unsealed intelligence reports. "This wasn't just a hunting trip," Rook explained. "These nobles weren't bored rich kids. They were planning something, coordinated strikes on resistance colonies, rogue Earth systems, and unaligned trade networks. Genocidal in scope. The Empire called it Operation Glass Horizon." Raelyn's expression darkened. They were prepping a second purge. Strannik exhaled slowly. "Guess we just cut the head off the wrong dragon." "No," Raelyn replied. We cut off one head. There are more. She pointed to a blinking red node in the holomap. But we know where they are now. Tor grinned, knuckles cracking. Then let's hunt them. In the Empire's core worlds, the news broke 2 days later. A freak atmospheric failure on Varela 9. All members of the noble hunting party, presumed dead. Their flagship shattered in orbit. Cause unknown. The Empire hushed it quickly. But whispers spread. Of a woman with a bloodied face. Of black-armored phantoms who walked through gunfire and shadow. Of a skull burned into snow and metal. The Reapers had returned. Somewhere deep in space, on a barren asteroid outside Imperial jurisdiction, Raelyn stood alone outside the stealth ship. Stars stretched forever in all directions. Strannik joined her, holding 2 mugs of ration-grade coffee. It's bitter, he said, handing her one. But it's hot. She accepted it, eyes still fixed on the void. I buried them, she murmured. My squad. My past. I thought if I disappeared, the Empire would forget us. They didn't, Strannik said. They tried to erase you. Raelyn nodded. But I lived, and now they know. Silence settled between them. Finally, Strannik spoke. What's next? Raelyn turned, her eyes hard. We bleed them, she said. From the shadows. From the stars. They took our homes, our people, our dignity. We take their fear and turn it into fire. She raised her comm link and activated a secure channel. Message to all remaining Ghost Reaper units. Raelyn Voss. Alive. Operational. Mission status. Black Phoenix. Across the galaxy, hidden agents and sleeper cells long believed inactive received the signal. It said one thing. Burn it down. In a Cold War room deep inside the Imperial High Council's citadel, an alarm sounded. A red sigil blinked onto a holographic display. One word, one they hadn't seen in over a decade, flashed again and again. Reapers. The silence that followed wasn't disbelief. It was fear. Epilogue. A merchant ship drifted into a backwater port in the outer systems. A man at the bar told a tale, too wild to believe. They hunted her like prey, he said, out on some frozen rock. Thought she was just another stray human. Turns out, she was one of them. The listener leaned in. Them. The Ghost Reapers, the man whispered. Earth's Black Ops nightmares. Thought they were long dead. But now, they're back. And they're pissed. The bar fell quiet. Far off in the void, where no law held sway, a cold voice whispered through cracked comm channels, carried on old Earth frequencies. We are the forgotten. We are the ghosts. And we remember everything.